Welcome to another episode of Capital Roots, brought to you by Capital Farm Credit, where we bring you the experts in the ag industry.
You can both love agriculture and be a conservationist. And, conserving and putting back into better than is found, I'd love being part of that.
In addition to a few Texas legends along the way.
We're your hosts, Joe Patronella
and Clint Cryer. Thank you for listening. Now let's get back to our roots.
Welcome back to Capital Roots. Today, we've got John Jones with Lochow Pond and Lake Management. John, you're kind of a jack of all trades, but before we get into everything else, I want to hear about this pond and lake management operation that you have. So could you kind of tell us your background about how you got into it and what all y'all service in your territory and everything?
Yeah, that could take a little while, but to keep it simple, we manage about 8,000 ponds and lakes in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. We started in 2003 and have grown since then.
Okay. That's quite a territory.
Yeah, but there's more to be had.
I like that mindset.
Yeah.
I'm going to set a record today for the first question.
Okay.
Boom.
Tell us the difference between a pond and a lake.
A lake is something that you spend money on.
Okay.
Works?
Yep.
Where does a tank fit in there? Is that more of an agrarian body of water?
Generally, if you say tank, that means that you're really involved with agriculture.
Okay, that's kind of what I always figured.
But a tank can be a pond or a lake, but probably means you have some cows.
Okay.
So really involved with agriculture. What do you mean there? Is that like country bumpkin, or does that mean you're just an agriculturalist?
I would say it means that you make a portion of your income off of agriculture.
Let's talk about your business a little bit.
Okay.
What do you do, technically speaking?
My wife, late night, calls me the Prince of Minnows. So I like to say I sell fish.
That's a good handle.
Yeah, I'll take it.
CB radio or something.
I would, absolutely. Channel 19.
Heck yeah. Channel 19 in Brazos County?
Anywhere.
Okay.
Anywhere.
So what's the Prince of Minnows mean?
Well, technically what we do is we're a full service pond and lake management company. If you're unfamiliar with that, I can just say, think about a pool company except for your lake. And so we spray weeds, we stock fish, we do electrofishing surveys that will tell you how many fish you have and how fat or skinny they are and what you need to do to improve your lake. We build lakes, we build ponds, fountains, aeration systems, just basically anything to do with water that's outside.
Wow. So the fish counting or the fish, what was that again?
It's electrofishing surveys. You'd love that. I
Yeah,
can't believe
that's
I have
fascinating.
to pay my employees to do this, but you're on a boat and we have a way to pulsate electricity through the water, and the fish around the boat will float to the top. We net them, weigh them, measure them, look at densities, that sort of thing, and the biologists write reports based on that and your goals.
So does yours fit in a little Copenhagen can and hook to your trolling motor battery?
Ooh, you should go to jail for knowing that. So, no, it doesn't, but the principles are similar.
I got you.
That's neat.
So let's talk about
how you know that.
I heard about it from a friend.
Okay.
As Clint's attorney, I'm going to say he's going to plead the fifth and we're going to move right along. Okay.
So let's talk about some of the goals of the people that you work for. Why would they want to do this?
I think generally all of them want to improve what they have as far as what nature provided. So a lot of people are into restoring their properties and making them better. And after you work on the crops and the animals and the trees, you kind of look at your pond and say, I'd like to do the same to my pond or lake. And so your goals can be varied, although a lot of times they're intertwined. Could be better fishing, could be better aesthetics, better recreation, maybe even boating or water skiing or all types of things. But water in Texas is precious, and a lot of people are taking more and more notice to it. So what may have been a cow pond 50 years ago, that same pond could now be a lake in front of somebody's house that has a little bit different set of goals than just watering the livestock. And that's what's beautiful about ponds and lakes, is you can do more than one thing with them.
Definitely. Would you say the primary goal might be the fishery in your work?
No, I wouldn't say that. There's a lot of people believe they want to grow record fish, but the reality is just having a good day fishing, a good day recreating with your family and friends is really more important. A lot of people don't know how to convey that, but that's the truth, is they want to have a good day fishing. But I would say that's usually secondary at best.
Are you ever involved in the actual structuring of the body of water, or is it more quality of what's in the water?
Both. So I have a separate company
Okay.
that builds lakes from the ground up, and so I love doing that because many lakes were built for livestock water, maybe kind of as an afterthought with a company that does it on again, off again, and so they're not as good as they could have been. But having the ability to build that from the ground up is special and something that's going to last, well after I'm gone. So I put a lot of pride into that.
What makes a well-built body of water like that?
First is sizing it properly to the watershed. That's number one. You want it to be waterproof or something close to that. That's really important.
Sure.
And then making sure it's built to the goals that you have, whether that's having drought resistance or great fishing or maybe big enough to water ski. Or, I think for a lot of people is digging it deep enough that it will not grow weeds, because weeds are a long-term maintenance expense that if you can not have, you're better off.
That makes sense.
You have to just think of your lake. It's basically the same as a pasture. If you do things to your pasture to make it better up front, it's going to be less maintenance long-term. Your pond or lake is the exact same thing.
Yeah. You were talking about your territory, but Texas specifically, do you take different approaches to where you are geographically in the state to how you handle the client, the property? I mean, aside from their goals, just the terrain that you're in.
Yeah, especially during the construction phase. As you move farther west, it's less likely that the soil itself is going to be conducive to holding water. Sure. So you'll do plastic liners or clay liners or different types of way to make the lakes more waterproof. There's a certain water quality parameters. It goes from a soft water out east to a harder water out west. And then as you move to certain parts of the state up north in the Panhandle and down towards Abilene and down in some of the southern parts of the state, South Texas, there's a lot of salt issues that you work around. And obviously rainfall. At the end of the day, fish can't live and cows can't drink it if there's no water in it. So you want to have a lake that lasts through the droughty times.
That's so cool to me. I love that.
It really is. Going back to, you made the comment, water is precious in Texas. I think of that saying, in Texas, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting.
It's the new oil.
Yeah, you used to be good at it.
So I'm curious, is most of your work on static bodies of water? And I know there's a technical term on this. I think back to wildlife management classes in college, but versus moving bodies of water?
Yeah, I'd say we do some work both for the state and for individuals that have creeks and rivers flowing through their place. But generally, fisheries work is going to be done on a body of water that's fully contained. Maybe a little bit of weed treatment sometimes in those creeks and areas like that.
Gotcha. So let's talk about one of your greatest success stories on development of a lake, whether it was a greenfield or anything that stands out.
Probably there's no single success story on that. What I consider, the greatest accomplishments on Friday and Saturday when I get pictures from parents and grandparents of the fish that their kids or grandkids have caught, that does it for me. And or when I fly around the state and I see a lake that our company built and I know it's going to be there for a really long time, we've made a mark on the land and we've improved it in a way that's going to last for generations. So been involved obviously with some of the most special projects around. In the public world, we were able to help Parks and Wildlife to clean up down at Caddo Lake and knock back the giant Sylvania. That was really neat. With our fisheries company, believe it or not, probably my greatest success in that area was being able to help during Hurricane Harvey, having the boats and the equipment and the folks to be able to help people get out of their houses. So it's different than what you would think, but that's what I consider our successes.
No, I like that. That's such a humble answer, and I thank you for that. But really, I think you could sum that all up with the word conservation. And I think that's a word that a lot of agencies use, but you're actually conserving the land for future generations, and that's something that's direly needed.
Conserving and putting back into better than is found. That's, a common trend with the properties that we work at. As people buy that property, they usually are able to afford to make it better than what they found it. And I'd love being part of that.
Absolutely.
I really think that's a great tie into agriculture. We call this Capital Roots, and obviously we're passionate about agriculture at Capital Farm Credit. But I think to what you're saying there, the conservation piece of it, I've always liked to say that agriculturalists are, the ultimate conservationists. And I think it all just comes together.
Yeah.
It's a shame not everybody sees it that way, but I certainly do. I see it day in and day out. And you can both love agriculture and be a conservationist. As a matter of fact, you are the greatest ones.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I think we're getting our story out that way.
that's great.
Yep.
John, you'd mentioned doing some work in conjunction with Hurricane Harvey and maybe some cleanup there. Or could you just expand on that and tell us how you were involved and what you did maybe?
Yeah, I love to. I love talking about, that time changed my life forever, changed a lot of the viewpoints that I have, and certainly affected everybody in our company. When Hurricane Harvey hit, I had the same views that every business owner had. I was looking at the flooding and said, well, the state will handle that, and not really knowing what that meant. But watching the TV, I saw a picture come across of some folks in a retirement home, and they were up to their chest and in water and wheelchairs. And I think everybody's seen that picture, and that was it. So, all thoughts of liability and what could happen if we hurt somebody or ourselves just kind of went out the window. Said, look, we have a lot of boats, we have to go. And so, we ended up getting 24 boats and trucks ready to go, and made a call around to all of our managers and employees and see if anybody wanted it. Of course, everybody wanted to go. And we went down there and ended up getting more than 3,000 people out of their houses. And so
That's fantastic.
I had no idea that was, going to be something I was called to do, or our team would be called to do. And it worked out. And it worked out for a lot of reasons. It didn't hurt that we work for a lot of people in the know and have connections, and were able to get us into the city. And once we were there was certainly a need for an organized force that could mass move a lot of people. And it's become a passion in my life for sure to better organize and support with boat owning volunteers during aquatic emergencies, during flooding events. And since that time, we've done work in Louisiana and multiple floods in Texas, and it's something I'm very, very passionate about. There's a lot of folks out there that have boats and are great at operating them, but they don't know the first thing about how to connect with the authorities during flooding events and how to be more effective. And there's no reason for the state to have enough people to handle a Harvey. That's not a reasonable use for our taxpayer dollars. So being able to bridge the gap between public and private, and be able to use the people that want to help with the people that know what needs to be done, and bridge that gap. So there's a lot going on there. We've made huge strides. There's a few things legislatively that need to be done, and some awareness training that needs to be done for the boat owning volunteers, so they're not a liability, and even further accentuate what they're able to do during flooding events. It was quite a thing. I'll never forget that.
It's pretty awesome. As I think about it, that public-private partnership, it's really, at the end of the day, it comes down to humanity. And I think so many times in society today, we've been polarized by political division or whatever it may be. And some of that has been galvanized within us such that we forget about humanity and our fellow man and those types of things.
It was neat to be involved in something. It's exactly what you said. The first thing I thought about is lawsuits and who could get hurt and what could happen. But the reality is, I personally took somebody out of their house that would have passed away had I not been there. And, that's my story. And there was a lot of us there, and each one of us has stories similar to that. And in this case, I think we did nothing but help. More importantly, we're a tiny group. There was thousands of people that were compelled to go there with every shape and size of boat, and with no training, just knew how to drive a boat and wanted to help. And as we left, I recognized that there's an ability for us to do even more, playing off that humanity card. When you feel it, you feel it. You just got to help. And in some cases, volunteers, kind of congest things up. But with a little bit of knowledge, they're a powerful force. I use this analogy sometimes for that if you needed, I live in College Station, you live in Lubbock. Let's say we needed to knock down a building in Lubbock. Okay. I don't know why we need to do that, but maybe we do. Okay. And so the state sponsored folks, they're like having a D12 bulldozer. And to get a bulldozer from here to Lubbock takes a lot. You got to have permits. You got to have a big truck. You got to have a driver for the truck. It takes a long time. turns out maybe there's already 100 D3 bulldozers in Lubbock, and they may not know what they're doing, not as effective, but they're already there, and they don't have everything else going on. And that's how I look at volunteers. Not so much, in no way are they as qualified as a swiftwater rescue team, but for doing some of the grunt work that doesn't require a lot of qualification and skills, they can actually be a force multiplier, and they're already there. So why not use them? They're going to show up. Why not make them more effective?
Definitely. I think about the organization, and for whatever reason, it may be crazy, but my mind goes to like a truck dispatch, being able to have that level of organization. If you've got D12s in Lubbock, and don't have to take them from the Brazos Valley, let's say, if you could organize that such to where it makes you much better at utilizing resources.
Well, and that's what we've put together. It's a very simple plan, because it has to be simple, but you have to have a place to go. You have to have things to do, and you have to have a list of what to take. What you don't realize when you go and get involved in a flood like that is that you're going to need to be self-sufficient for about a week. So you got to have your own fuel.
Sure.
You have to have your own food. You got to have a place to, or a bedroll to sleep, because you don't know where you're going to sleep. And you certainly don't want to be a burden on emergency management. So.
Yep. So you've made a couple of references to Lubbock and growing up. So I got to ask you some questions. Where did you grow up?
Well, I've lived all over. I've lived in, I think, 10 or 12 states. But I went to high school in Shallow Water, which, is,
know where that's at.
Yeah, I thought you would. And, was heavily involved in FFA there. And my family owns a water well drilling company and service company up there. So that's what I did when I was young. Yeah. I wasn't planning on coming to college at all. I planned on staying up there and drilling water wells. And one day I was sitting on a friend of mine's couch who had got into A&M, and there was a little college catalog, and I was thumbing through it, and couldn't find anything I wanted to do. So I guess I was going to stay drilling water wells. And I got to the very last page. It was College of Wildlife and Fisheries, right? And, well, that's pretty neat. And I'm thumbing through that. It said degree in fisheries management. And so, well, hey, I love fishing. And somebody had told me the day before, John, if you love what you do, you never work another day in your life. And it sounds kind of cliche now, but at the time, we're talking groundbreaking stuff here.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I love being a pro fisherman. I love fishing. So I'm going to get a degree in fisheries management and be a pro fisherman. So
boom, there you go.
The next day I applied to A&M, and
and
here I am. Now, it turns out that I was a good fisherman for Lubbock. This is before Lake Allen Henry, okay? But I wasn't very good for down here, so I quickly had my dreams dashed.
I'm a fan of that logic, though. Anytime you can base your logic on fishing, can that be the structure for which you're making decisions? Not a bad.
It worked out, Who would ever thought? But I didn't know what a lake manager was. I don't even know that if I knew what Parks and Wildlife was at the time. I love fish. In the other places I lived, I always lived in very rural areas, and just had a deep, deep love for the outdoors. Now, I left the South Plains because I like trees and water, and there's a bit of a shortage up there. Yeah. But, some of the best people around.
Hey, Joe, you know what I find interesting?
What do you find interesting, Clint?
That the aquatics expert left shallow water.
I love those shallow water, Plainview. I love the names of those towns up there. Just very logical.
But
they are
shallow water.
It actually is shallow. In Plainview, there is a view of the plains.
I'm telling you, they make sense.
I'm happy. I don't know, maybe, but I'll go with it.
Well, it all worked out how it was supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. You just never know, but it did work out.
So moving to the Brazos Valley kind of might have been your first real, I don't want to say understanding, because I think everybody's understanding of agriculture, but maybe glimpse into agriculture.
Well, I was heavily involved in ag as a family that's involved around water. You're married to the farmers, and the need for water, and obviously, water issues are really important up in Lubbock with the cutoff aquifer and continuing to have water amounts change up there. Coming down here was a different type of agriculture up there. It's cotton, and what is the cotton price going to do, and good years and bad years and tornadoes, and you know what it is. And so down here, it's a different sort of agriculture. It's a lot more mixed. There's a lot different types of crops. The dries aren't. I didn't even know how to behave when I came down here, because I thought rain only happened once or twice a year. And so I moved down here, and it was a wet year, but I called back home and I said, hey, it rains every day here. And they're like, what? No, every day it rains.
It used to rain every day here.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit. Okay. But
Sadly,
that year when
yeah.
I came down, about 6 months, it rained every day. And, it took a while to get used to that.
I bet.
But no, always going to be around agriculture. I love production in any form. I'm the current president of the Texas Aquaculture Association. So,
Are you really?
yeah, fish farming is something
neat.
that's near and dear to me. And I appreciate the struggles, the amount of risk that a farmer takes to make a living, whether modest or otherwise. They leverage everything to be able to produce, and it takes real guts to do that. And we're all a recipient of that, being able to eat and not concern ourselves with day to day where food comes from. Because a long time ago, your day was consumed from morning till night with staying warm and producing food. That was it. And because of agriculture, commercial agriculture, we have luxuries of doing things that we did not have time to do even 100 years ago.
Yep.
Texas Aquaculture Society.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because I recently just learned the term aquaculture, and I think that's such a slick word.
Well,
So
culture, aqua,
I know,
Yeah.
I know, agriculture, aquaculture,
it's
but
good.
it just
got a
like
ring,
a
right?
light bulb went off in my head. I was like, wow. So what do y'all do?
Well, it's combined. It's comprised. Its members are all the people that grow fish, or most of the people that grow fish, or not just fish, shrimp, aquatic organisms in the state. And believe it or not, there's a thriving aquaculture industry, and they produce a tremendous amount of food. And it's generally in a few areas of Texas where there's enough water to support it, and it's got its challenges. Texas has got all sorts of needs for water, and fish require water, so there's a balance there. But top shelf product, and there's a lot of stigmas that need to be erased about farm raised fish. But good American farm raised product, you just can't beat it.
Yep.
And so I was recently down for a board meeting for that, and some of the biggest redfish producers are down there, down the coast around Palacios, as well as some of the biggest shrimp producers. And so if you haven't tried Texas farm-raised aquaculture products, you should ask for it. And I personally know the people that run those farms, and all great people.
Fantastic. Well, that's good to know.
Yep. We've actually got a few customers in that area
Yep.
in the aquaculture business.
Yeah, well, it's great products for sure.
Yep. On the subject of aquaculture, let's talk about some of the challenges over the last couple of years to that business.
Look, when people ask me, should I get into fish farming, I'm probably, the worst person for this. I say, probably not. And they say, well, why? But look, if you're willing to work 7 days a week and have all your disasters happen at night, because that's when fish generally die, you could probably make a better living in a different career field. That being said, if you're passionate about it, I couldn't be more thankful for people that grow fish. It's a hard business. Your animals are under the water. They're hard to see. When they die, it's not easy to see why they die. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of risk, and there's a lot of competition from foreign products that are maybe have less stringent about some of the things that we're stringent about here. But the single biggest issue that the Texas Aquaculture Association members have faced in the last couple of years was the big freeze of 2 years ago now, and again last year, and redfish, which I think most of the redfish in America that are grown in America are grown in Texas. I believe there's one other pretty big producer on the East Coast. I'm not 100% sure on that. They're cold sensitive, and so with the issues that the grid had and what everybody had with freeze that we're not really built for here in Texas, it killed 80-90% of the redfish crop, maybe even longer. And you have to think about fish. It's a couple year process to go from a baby fish to something that you eat. And so, it wiped it all out. And luckily all the producers were able to band together and work with their local reps and senators and the American Aquaculture Association, National Aquaculture Association, for ELAP, which is kind of an insurance policy for that type of kill. It was in place already for a lot of other disasters with agriculture, but for whatever reason, food fish were exempted, and so we were able to get that changed. Took a lot of work from a lot of folks, but now I think producers have a little bit less risk and have something to fall back on. It's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than it was, and couldn't have been more proud to be part of that effort, because it saved a lot of farms from going under. That was to lose everything you have and everything that you were growing for 2 years from now, to lose it all at once like that. Not many people could handle that.
Imperfect's far better than nothing.
Exactly.
That's-
And it's being
that's
improved
great
all the
work.
time.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that yesterday.
Yep. You made a reference to, I was thinking about, you were talking about fish dying at night, and I got to thinking, really in agriculture, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't know what, problems with, whether it's problems with fish, Kevin heifers.
Well, but it's hard work. People don't appreciate it. There's been a lot of technology advancements in every area of agriculture, and there's less small farmers and more big ones and all that. But at the end of the day, bad stuff happens at night and requires hard-working men and women to go handle those problems. And so, those people are fewer and fewer every decade. And so, we all should appreciate them more and more. It's a hard way to make a living, but honorable and necessary for the rest of us to live easy lives.
So, project I'd like to ask you about, you had a big hand in, I understand, is Aggie Park.
Yeah, I'm very proud to have been involved in Aggie Park with a bunch of other great people. Being an Aggie.
Let's go easy, Clint, here as the Raider. It was big of him to even ask the question.
Okay.
We appreciate that, Clint.
Do I need to be done now?
No. We really want to hear about it, because even being a local here, I don't know much about it. So tell us, please.
Well, it's about 300 yards that way.
Yes, we're very close to it right now.
So a few years ago, the leadership at the association had decided that a park there in kind of an unused part of the campus could be turned into, a better use, and a lake being part of that. There's a large drainage that went through it. And I was involved as a consultant and as an Aggie and as a person who loves fish throughout the process. And today we stock and take care of that lake, and couldn't be more proud of how it's turned out and how many people's lives it touched, how many people have fished for the first time in that lake. And the fishing experience, in my opinion, is probably the single greatest fishing experience in Texas today
That's so neat.
for an average angler. And it's only going up from here.
I plan to be the first Red Raider to catch fish at Aggie Park.
There you go.
You got to show a student ID, and we'll have to keep you out.
But didn't you say earlier how many people fish there a day or a week? It's an impressive number.
I can't tell you how many in total, but it's hundreds. Anytime that I go there, there's probably 10 to 20 anglers, and 80% or so are first-time anglers. And so, you can do the math, and it's pretty impressive how many people are being able to fish, and more importantly, catch. There's lots of places to fish, but catching is an important part of fishing, and that lake you can catch fish.
Yeah. What are y'all stocking it with?
So far, we've stocked it with largemouth bass as a primary species, hybrid striped bass, rainbow trout, and redfish.
Yep, really cool. So one of the things that struck me is just the first-time fisherman. I think that's a great introduction to go back to the subject of agriculture, introduction to agriculture, and just the awareness that, you catch what you eat. I want to talk I know a little bit about your passion for agriculture personally.
Yeah.
You're famous in some respects for your gardening.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that I do love to garden, and a little different sort of hobby for a guy my age, but I love watching things grow, whether that's fish or grass, or in this case, fruits and vegetables. So I absolutely love to garden. Yeah, I'm into self-reliance.
Yes.
I think it's important to be able to take care of you and yours, and if you could share that knowledge with other people as well, to ways to help them take care of them and theirs. And a lot of times it's not so much ever actually needing to do that, but have the ability to do that.
Just having things on hand. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's another way of saying a really organized hoarder.
What is it that you really enjoy growing?
Really, again, anything. So we have a few hundred fruit trees, and so they're a little bit more frustrating than a garden. When you mess up in a garden, you can get the rototiller out and start again.
Yeah.
Fruit trees a little bit more slow paced, and you don't want to knock them down every time you mess it up. But right now in the garden, we'll have strawberries, potatoes, snap peas, And soon, in about one more week, we'll start in the garden in earnest. We basically, and no joke, we grow basically every type of vegetable there is.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Love it.
Pretty cool. You talked about some stats. How much, do you know the pounds you put up?
Generally, we give away about 10 to 15,000 pounds of food a year.
You give it away.
Well, I mean, nobody could eat that much, and
That's pretty
canning takes a lot of time, so it's
That's
special
phenomenal.
to be able to give it away.
10 to 15,000 pounds. That's feeding Texas.
Well, at least little parts of it that
Hey,
I know.
Word
It
of I am.
works.
So your involvement in agriculture, fruit trees, gardening, fisheries. There's something else, isn't there?
Didn't you mention honey?
Well, yeah, the farm has a lot of the outdoor pursuits out there, and we started with some bees years ago to better pollinate. I don't know if it does or not, but sounded good. It's a lot of work as a hobby, so
Sure.
I'll give that a shout out. And it makes it worse that I'm highly allergic to bees, but that's okay. You can power through that.
That's dedication right there.
It is.
I literally buy Benadryl by the 1,000 count containers, and I have lots of them. So
The little pink pills.
lots of them. Yeah, it's kind of freaky how much I have on hand. But anyway, so be it. Bees work when you're not, so that's always nice. And we've got it up this past year. We did 1,200 pounds of honey, and
Wow.
I don't know what we're going to do with all. We give it away, but you got to be within the inner circle to get that. I don't just give it to everybody.
That's an upper tier item.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Know where you rank.
So you bottle it in the honey bears?
Even better, little glass muth jars. But I did have some of the bears to start off.
Reusable.
Yeah. Yeah, if you bring them back, bonus, you might get honey next year. If you don't
It's a
bring them back,
surefire way
I know
to
what type of
make the
person you are.
list.
Exactly.
That's right. So as we consider going back to the fisheries operation, what are some good stories there? What's the biggest bass you've ever grown?
The biggest bass I've ever seen in an electrofishing survey is 19 pounds, 1 ounce.
19.1. And so the state record is
Less than.
Yep.
18.18 is what I believe it to be currently.
18.18.
So you grew a state record bass, is what I'm hearing?
Well, it grew in one of the ponds I manage, so
Okay.
I'll take a little credit, but
What part of the state would that be in?
about 72 miles south of here.
South of here.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That's
Small
fantastic.
pond, 4 acres, 3-foot average depth, and that lake grew some monster fish. We grow a lot of fish in the teens, of course, but to see a fish that big, that's a dinosaur.
How old would that fish be?
I can't tell you without killing the fish, but I would say between 7 and 12 years old.
7 to 12.
If I was guessing, it was an older fish for sure towards the end of its life.
So I'm curious, in that case, was that a strategic plan to grow that fish, or was it just based on good management practice?
Good management practice. That particular owner was he's not an avid fisherman. He loves his lake. He has a beautiful high-end cattle ranch, and now it's in the middle of the city, of course. But it's he just loved having a quality lake and having good fish. And in his case, he got great fish.
Yeah.
But there's other properties that have obviously a lot more of those size fish, but a little bit smaller.
Probably pretty interesting to a lot of our listeners, a lot of our customers at Capital, as we finance, farms and ranches really across the state. I think fisheries is something that is probably important to a lot of them. You've probably worked with a lot of our customers.
I'm aware of several, and of course, unaware of a whole lot more.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we thank you for helping our customers.
Well, thanks for letting me.
Definitely. Appreciate your passion for agriculture.
Well, it's been there since I was a tiny kid, if not just agriculture, but being outside. And so being outside and agriculture, a lot of times right next to each other.
Definitely. That's really an underappreciated part of agriculture, in my opinion, is just being outside.
Oh, yeah. Just reset, kind of clear your mind.
Get the sunshine, be happy, wear less clothes, the whole thing.
Well, we appreciate you being here today, John. Had some interesting stories for us today. I think our listeners will find it very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. Look forward to the next time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to fishing at Aggie Park.
You're good, I'll take you. Where'd you go to school?
Let's just leave that off the air.
Say, I love Texas A&M, and I'll take you to great.
I love Texas A&M. I'll jump in.
All right, there you go.
There you go.
How big a bass are we talking?
as big as you can catch if you go with me, but I'll take you to the right
Let
places.
me think about this. This might be a statement that needs to go on air for the second visit with you.
Okay, that'll work.
There we go.
Okay.
Well, John, thanks for coming on.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Thank
it, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on Capital Roots. Texas agriculture is the foundation of our story and what makes us family.
Capital Farm Credit's a proud member of the Farm Credit System. We finance farmers, ranchers, agricultural producers, and rural landowners, and we're here to make your vision a reality.
We've been serving rural Texas for more than a century. Whether it be traditional, innovative, or lifestyle, we'll help you cultivate new ground. We're all in this together.
Because together, we're better.